Hello, hello. Welcome back to Me Callo, I Won't Stay Quiet. I'm your host, Lomelin, and this month we are stepping into a very special series, one that was born from a very deep question I asked myself one day. How do we rebuild ourselves from within? Because life has moments where everything seems to break apart. Moments when we thought was secure suddenly isn't anymore. Moments when relationships change. Moments when our identity shifts. Moments when something inside us feels like it needs to transform. And in those moments, many people start looking for answers outside of themselves. They look for new goals, new people, new distractions. But rarely do we stop to do something that is absolutely necessary for real growth. Looking inward. In the first episode of this series, we talked about something very important. We talked about the moment when life forces us to pause. That moment when silence shows up. That moment when something inside us whispers. Something has to change. And today we're going to go even deeper. Today we're going to talk about something many people don't look at closely enough. Something that influences every decision we make, every relationship we build, and every boundary we set or don't set. Today we're talking about our roots, and this second episode is called Roots of Your Power. And I want you to think about something simple. When you see a big, strong tree full of life, the first thing you notice is what's above the surface, right? The leaves, the flowers, the branches. But what holds all of that together is underneath, invisible, deep, silent, the roots. And without roots, there is no growth. Without roots, there is no stability. Without roots, any storm can knock the tree down. And that same is true for us. So you know what to do. Get comfortable, grab your coffee, your cafecito, your glass of wine, or a cold beer, and get ready to chismear with me. So let's start with a simple question. Do you really know where your roots are? And I'm not talking about your last name. I'm not talking about where you were born. I'm not talking about your family. I'm talking about something deeper than that. Your roots are not just your past. Your roots are everything that has shaped you who you are today. From your experiences, your values, your wounds, your lessons, your decisions, the things your parents taught you, the things you had to learn on your own when no one was there to guide you, the moments when someone believed in you, and the moments when no one did, and you still kept going. The things that broke you, the things that made you stronger, the things that forced you to grow earlier than expected. All of that lives inside of you. All of that is part of who you are. But here's something important that many people don't realize. So many people live disconnected from their own roots. They move through life, they work, they handle responsibilities, they maintain relationships, but they rarely stop and ask themselves, where does the person I am come from? Where does my way of loving come from? Where does my fear come from? Where does my strength come from? Where do my decisions come from? Because none of that appears out of nowhere. Everything has a root. Everything has a story. Everything has an origin. But we live in a world that constantly pushes us to do the opposite. A world that tells us, just move on. Don't look back. Get over it. Don't think too much. Be strong. Keep going. And even though those words sometimes come from a good intention, they can disconnect us from something very important, our own story. Because we grow up in a culture that glorifies speed. Everything has to be fast. Decision, success, healing, growth. And we want to heal quickly. We want to forget quickly. We want to feel better quickly. But the truth is, roots don't grow fast. Roots grow quietly. They grow slowly. They grow in the dark. They grow beneath the surface where no one sees them. And the same thing happens with inner growth. It's not always visible. It's not always fast. And it is not always comfortable. Because looking at our roots means looking at everything that shaped us. And that includes beautiful things, but also difficult ones. Moments when we felt lost, we felt rejected, we felt like we weren't enough. We had to learn how to survive. And many people would rather not look at those parts. They bury them, ignore them, pretend they don't exist. But ignoring your roots doesn't make them disappear. It only disconnects you from an important part of yourself. Because even the experiences that hurt us the most taught us something. Maybe they taught us to be stronger, how to protect yourself, how to value your peace, what kind of love you will never accept again. Maybe they taught you to trust your intuition. Some of life's deepest lessons come from the hardest moments. And that doesn't mean we romanticize pain. It doesn't mean everything that happened was good, but it does mean recognizing something important. You survived. You are here, breathing, growing, reflecting, trying to understand yourself more deeply. And that already says a lot about your roots. Roots are not formed only through happy experiences. They are formed through resilience, through adaptation, through learning, through transformation. And every time life forced you to change, a new root began to grow. And every time you had to make a difficult decision, your roots grew deeper. Every time you stood after falling, something inside you became stronger. And many times we don't give ourselves credit for that. We focus on what we're missing, on what didn't go as planned, on what still hurts. But we rarely stop to recognize something very important, the strength that already lives inside of us. Because that strength is also part of your roots. Your ability to keep moving forward, your ability to reflect, your ability to love even after being hurt, your ability to stand up even when life hasn't been easy. That doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's built, formed, cultivated, root by root, experience by experience, moment by moment. And when you begin to see your life from that perspective, something shifts. You begin to look at your story with more compassion. You begin to see your journey with more respect. And you begin to understand that you are not only the things that happened to you, you are also the person who rose after each one of them. Your roots are not only your pain, your roots are also your resilience. Your roots are not only your wounds, they are also your capacity to heal. Your roots are not only the moments you doubted yourself, they are also the moments you kept going, even when you didn't know how. And when you begin to recognize that, something powerful happens. You stop seeing your story as something you need to hide, and you begin to see it as something that shaped you, something that gave you perspective, that gave you depth, that gave you strength. And because here's an important truth, no one else has your roots, no one else has your exact story, and no one else has your lessons. No one else has your unique combination of experiences, emotions, decisions, and growth. And that means something important. Your power is unique. Your perspective is unique. Your voice is unique. Your truth is unique. And when you allow yourself to look at your roots with honesty, with compassion, and with curiosity, you begin to understand something deeply liberating. Your story is not just something that happened to you. Your story is part of your power. So I want you to do something with me for a moment. Pause for a second. Take a breath. Inhale. Exhale. And now think about your life. And not the quick version you give people when they ask, "Hi, how are you?" Not the short summary of your life. I want you to think about your real story. And think about everything you lived up to this moment. The good things, the difficult things, the moments when you felt completely happy, when everything seemed to align, when you felt peace, love, and hope. And maybe it was a moment with your family. Maybe it was a friendship that made you feel truly seen. Or maybe it was an opportunity that made you feel proud of yourself. Maybe it was something small, a conversation, a laugh, a hug that stayed with you. But there is also the other moments, the moments of uncertainty, the moments when you didn't know what was going to happen, moments when you felt fear, when something inside you was changing, when you wondered if you were making the right decision. Think about the decisions you made with confidence, those moments when you said, "This is what I want, this is what I deserve, and this is the path I'm going to take." And maybe it was changing jobs. Maybe it was moving somewhere new. Maybe it was ending a relationship that was no longer healthy. Maybe it was starting something new that gave you hope. But there are also the decisions you made with fear. The ones where you didn't have all the answers, where you had to trust your intuition, where you took a step forward without knowing exactly what would happen next. And maybe you said something you had been holding in for a long time. Maybe you stood up for something you believed in. Maybe you walked away from a situation that was hurting you. Or maybe you simply chose to keep going when giving up would have been easier. All of this is part of your story. Every one of those moments, every choice, every experience has shaped you and the person you are today. So I want you to hear this very clearly. Your story is not something you need to minimize. It's not something you need to make small. It's not something you should explain as if it was not important, because many times we do exactly that. Someone asks us about something difficult we went through and we respond quickly. "Oh yeah, but it wasn't that bad. Other people have gone through worse. It's over now. It doesn't even matter." And even though those words may sound humble, sometimes they hide something deeper. Sometimes they hide our difficulty in recognizing that what we lived did impact us. It did change us, and it did carry weight in our lives. Because your story matters, your experiences matter, and your emotions matter. And there's something else I want you to tell you today. Something that many people need to hear. Your story does not need to be compared to anyone else's. Because we live in a society that constantly pushes us to compare each other. We compare our success to others, our relationship to others, our wounds to others. And sometimes we think things like, well, my experience isn't that important. Other people have suffered more. Other people have already accomplished more at my age. But comparison creates only one thing: disconnection from yourself. Because here's something important I want you to remember. Your truth is not anyone else's truth. Your experience is unique. Your way of understanding the world is unique. Your way of loving is unique. Your way of healing is unique. Your path is unique. Maybe someone else went through something similar to what you experienced, but no one lived it exactly the way you did. And no one felt exactly what you felt. No one made the same decisions. No one walked the path with your thoughts, your doubts, and your hopes. And when you begin to accept that, something inside you shifts. You start letting go of comparison. You start releasing the pressure to move at the same pace as everyone else. And you begin to understand that life is not a competition. It is not a race. And it's not a line where everyone has to arrive at the same place at the same time. Because every person has their own process, their own rhythm, and their own moment. And when you truly understand that, you stop feeling that your life is behind. And you stop thinking things like, I should have everything figured out by now. I should be further ahead. I should have made different decisions. Instead, you begin to look at your journey with more perspective. You begin to see that every step you took, even the difficult one, brought you here. And maybe there were moments when you thought you were losing, moments when you felt like you were failing, moments when you felt like your life was going in the wrong direction. But with time, many of us begin to understand something different. We realize that even in those moments, they taught us something. They taught us what we want, what we don't want, to trust ourselves more, to listen to our intuition, to become stronger. And sometimes the decisions that scared us the most were the ones that helped us grow the most. Sometimes the experiences that hurt us the most were the ones that taught us the most about our worth. And when you begin to look at your story from that place, you stop seeing only the mistakes. You stop seeing only the losses. You stop seeing only what turned out differently than you imagined. And you begin to see something deeper. You begin to see your actual process, your evolution. And you begin to understand that every chapter of your life, even the ones you didn't choose, shaped you. They taught you and they prepared you. And they brought you to where you are today. And the simple fact that you are here reflecting, listening, and seeking growth already says a lot about you. It means your story is still moving. It means your path is still unfolding. And it means your growth is still happening. Because life is not a straight line. It's a process of learning, of transformation, of discovery. And every step, even the uncertain ones, is part of your roots. And from these roots, your power begins to grow. So now I want to talk about 3 things that form a very important part of your roots. And those are your values, your boundaries, and your life lessons. Because if your roots are what hold you up, these 3 things are what truly give them strength. So first, there are your values. Values are like that inner compass. We don't always see them, we don't always talk about them, but they are there, guiding many of our decisions. They are the things that tell you what matters to you, what kind of person you want to be, how you want to live, and how you want to treat others. Maybe one of your core values is honesty, telling the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Maybe it's loyalty, being present for the people you love. Maybe it's freedom, having the ability to make your own decisions. Maybe it's dignity, respecting yourself and your worth. But here's the problem. Many people never truly ask themselves what their values are. They simply react to what happens. They adapt to what their family expects. They will do what society says success should look like, to what a partner wants, to what a job demands. And little by little, they begin living life that isn't fully aligned with what they feel inside. From the outside, everything might look fine. But inside, there's a feeling that's hard to explain. Almost like something within you is whispering, this isn't completely me. And many times that discomfort appears when we are disconnected from our values. Another essential part of your roots, it's your boundaries. And boundaries are not punishment. Boundaries are protection. They are a way of saying, this is what I need in order to be well. But many of us grew up afraid to set boundaries, afraid of disappointing people, afraid someone might get angry, afraid of losing relationships. So we learned the opposite. We learned to say yes when we really wanted to say no. Yes, when someone crossed the line. Yes, when something made us uncomfortable. Yes, when our body was telling us something wasn't right. We learned to stay quiet, to avoid conflict, to please others. And at first, it can feel like it keeps the peace, but over time, that silence has a cost. You begin to feel emotional exhaustion, as if you were always giving but rarely receiving. As if you're always holding others up, but no one is holding you. And many times the root of that exhaustion is simple. We are not protecting our energy. Because every time you honor what you need, every time you say, this is no longer okay for me, your roots grow stronger. And finally, there are life lessons, because many of the most important lessons in our lives don't arrive during easy moments. They arrive when life shakes us, through loss, disappointment, betrayal, goodbyes. No one wants to go through those moments, but often they are the moments that teach us the most. When someone breaks your heart, you learn what kind of love you deserve. When you go through a disappointment, you learn to listen to your intuition. When you lose something important, you learn the value of time. Pain can reveal something super important, your ability to stand up again, your ability to rebuild yourself. And every time you get back up after falling, you learn something. Every time you said, this is no longer for me, you learn something. Every time you kept going, even without having all the answers, you learn something. And all of those lessons and all of those moments that transform you are also part of your roots, because roots are not only formed through happy moments, they're also formed through the experiences that force us to grow. The ones that change us, the ones that help us see life more deeply. And even if sometimes it still hurts to look back, there is one important truth. You survived, you learned, and everything you have lived, everything that taught you something about yourself, is part of the root from which your life continues to grow today. And now I want to share the central phrase of this episode. You cannot grow without your roots. And your roots are something no one else can give you. Your history, your strength, and your truth. Your roots are the invisible foundation from which your life grows, your decisions, your relationships, your dreams. And there is something important in that. No one can give you your roots. No one can give you your history. No one can walk exactly the path that you walked. And the moments you doubted, the moments you fell, the times you stood back up, all of that is part of something that is deeply yours. And within that story lives your strength, a strength that often grows quietly. The strength to keep going when something hurt. The strength to stand back up when you thought you couldn't. The strength to continue even when you didn't have all the answers. The strength does not come from other people's approval. It was born within you, through your journey, and there is also your truth. Your way of understanding life, your way of giving meaning to everything you have lived through. That's why if you ever felt lost, if you ever felt disconnected from yourself, maybe you don't need to change your entire life. Maybe what you need is to reconnect with yourself, to ask yourself again, who am I really? What truly matters to me? What have I learned from everything I have lived through? Where does my strength live? Because many times our strength is not in what we show the world. It lives in the moments when no one was watching, and you kept going anyway. And when you reconnect with your roots, something shifts. You begin to walk with more clarity. You begin to trust yourself more, because you recognize something important. Your story has value. Your process has meaning, and your roots are where your life continues to grow from. And if this topic resonated with you, I want to recommend a book that connects deeply with what we talked about today. And the book is called Trust Yourself, The Power of Believing in You by Kuro Cañete. It's a book that speaks about reconnecting with yourself, about learning to truly listen to your inner voice, about recognizing your values, your boundaries, and the decisions that genuinely reflect who you are. And many times we spend so much time searching for answers outside of ourselves, when the most important answers are actually within us, in our history, in our experiences, in the lessons life has taught us, in the roots we have built along our journey. This book can help you do something we often forget in the middle of life's fast pace. Pause, reflect, and reconnect with yourself. Because remember this, your story, Your values, your lessons, are not just parts of your past. They are the roots from which your life continues to grow. So I want to leave you with some questions to reflect on after this episode. And these aren't questions to answer quickly. They aren't questions to think about for a few seconds and move on with your day. These are questions to pause with, to sit with, maybe write down, maybe ponder in silence. Because many of the most important answers in life don't come from outside. They come from when we finally listen to ourselves with honesty. So ask yourself, what values truly guide my life? And let me clarify something important. Not the values others expect you to have. Not the values that sound good when you say them out loud. But the ones that actually show up in your decisions. The values that influence how you love, how you work, how you treat others, and how you treat yourself. Also ask yourself, what boundaries do I need to strengthen in my life? Where am I saying yes when I really want to say no? Where am I tolerating things that no longer feel right for me? Where am I prioritizing someone else's comfort over my peace? Because boundaries don't appear out of nowhere. They grow when we recognize something fundamental. Your well-being matters too. Now go even deeper. What lessons from my past have made me stronger? And yes, there may have been hard moments that still hurt when you remember them. But often in those moments, there are lessons about what you deserve. Lessons about what you will never allow yourself to repeat. Lessons about the strength you discovered inside yourself when you thought you had none. Each experience leaves something behind. And when you look at your story, honestly, you begin to see even the hardest parts actually shaped you. And finally, ask yourself something that takes courage. What parts of my story do I still need to accept? Because acceptance doesn't mean justifying what happened. It doesn't mean everything was okay. Acceptance means recognizing that it's part of your journey. It means stopping the fight against something that already happened, so you can consciously decide what to do with it now. Because when you start doing that inner work, something shifts. Something inside stabilizes, as if your feet finally touch solid ground. You start walking with more clarity. You start understanding yourself better. You start making decisions that feel aligned with who you truly are. Decisions that don't come from fear or external pressure, but from a deeper connection with yourself. And little by little, you start feeling something that many people spend years looking for outside themselves. Your own power. A power that doesn't depend on others' validation. A power that doesn't depend on meeting expectations. A power that comes from something much deeper, knowing yourself, accepting your story, and honoring your roots. In the episode description, you'll find the Amazon link with the full list of books mentioned in Me Callo, I Won't Stay Quiet from the very first episode up to today. And don't forget, every Friday there's a new episode waiting for you. Episode 3 is called Opening Your Petals. In this third episode, we enter a very powerful moment of personal growth. So after recognizing your roots, after looking at your story honestly, and after beginning to understand your strength, comes a step that often feels scary, opening yourself to the world again. Opening your petals doesn't mean everything is perfect. It doesn't mean there are no doubts or fears. It means something deeper. Stop hiding parts of yourself. Stop shrinking your voice. Stop making yourself small to make others comfortable. It's the moment when you decide to show who you are with more authenticity. In this episode, we talk about that process, the opportunities that appear when you start trusting yourself, the decisions that require courage, and the value of exposing yourself again, even after experiences that made you close parts of your heart. Because growing isn't just about healing what hurt. It's also about daring to live more truly. And opening your petals is allowing yourself to try again, to believe again, to shine your light without fear of being seen. And not because fear disappears, but because your authenticity becomes stronger than the fear. Because as we say, opening your petals doesn't mean being vulnerable. It means showing your light without apologizing for shining. So don't miss it. You were listening to Me Callo, I Won't Stay Quiet. I'm your host, Lomelin. Until next time.